Hello, here we meet again. Welcome to all. Last time when I talked to you, your feedback was that I should add clinical scenes or clinically oriented patients uh, and discuss their management. So, at your suggestion, at the end of this talk, I have added three clinical cases of different types so that you get clinical view as well of how the patient presents and how they are managed. I continue to speak to you about the theory of the subject because basics do require that you should have the basic knowledge of the subject, which is important. When I talk to the postgraduates, I don't talk about the basics, I talk about the clinical management only. But for you, I continue to add this basic subject for first half of the your talk so that your concepts about, when you go back to the book are clear. It's easy for you to read the book then. So today the topic is ectopic. Ectopic is a very important topic because ectopic pregnancy carries certain mortality in our patients. So to minimize that, you should know how it happens, what is the treatment, and how promptly you should act in management of ectopic patients. When we say ectopic, it means away from normal. So when we look at the normal way the pregnancy takes place, this picture gives you a fair idea that at the time of ovulation, the fimbrial ends they get very close to the ovary, and this, as a matter, through chemotaxis, they suck the ovum out of the follicle into the uh, tube. The lateral part of the tube is known as ampulla, in ampullary part. Then the egg travels through the tube into the main stem, that is ampulla, and there it meets the spermatozoa, which through the vagina, through uterine cavity and fallopian tube, reach that part of the tube to cause fertilization. If ovum and sperm they meet, that is fertilization. That means pregnancy. Then immediately the ovum doesn't rush into the uterine cavity. It takes 4 or 5 days for this ovum to gradually move from ampullary part to the istomal part to the uterine cavity. And that delayed passage is intentional because after fertilization, the uterus starts preparing itself, the endometrium, for reception of the ovum so that the fertilized egg can implant itself in the uterine cavity. So this delay is also essential. That's after 4 or 5 days, you can see through the picture the ovum, once fertilized, divides into two, then four, then multiple cells, morula as it is called, and then blastocyst develops. That blastocyst implants itself in the uterine cavity. So there are two things in a normal pregnancy. One, egg immediately enters the fallopian tube after it is released from the ovary, and then fertilization takes place in the lateral part of the fallopian tube, that is ampulla. And then a certain delay, which is 4 to 5 days, is essential for pregnancy to take place. If the egg reaches the uterine cavity too early, then the endometrium is not ready to receive it. So the pregnancy will not take place or implant. Then if there is a delay, then because embryo is dividing rapidly from 2 to 4, then 8, then 16 cells. So it's getting bigger. If the delay is longer than 4 or 5 days, then the tube is very narrow, particularly in the istomal part. So the ovum cannot pass through that narrow lumen, so it stays in the uterine cavity. So it will implant itself in the fallopian tubes, and instead of getting into the cavity, and any pregnancy outside normal uterine cavity is ectopic pregnancy. whether it is in the tube or anywhere else. So ectopic will take place if there's delay in the passage as well. If it's too early, pregnancy will not take place. If it is too late, then the fertilized egg or embryo cannot pass through the tube and it will get stuck and ectopic will take place. So this is important for you to understand what ectopic is. So when we come to define ectopic pregnancy, the simple definition now is the fertilized ovum is implanted at the site other than normal uterine cavity. If the cavity is congenitally abnormal, that will also make ectopic pregnancy in rudimentary horn or somewhere. And because fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube and that too in the ampullary part, the commonest site of ectopic pregnancy is the fallopian tube. So when we say ectopic, it almost is synonymous with tubal pregnancy, that pregnancy has taken place in the tube. Incidence is variable. Well, nobody has definite correct figures, but generally it is presumed that out of 300 pregnancies, one will become ectopic. And so it's fairly uncommon, but it is common in certain societies, particularly those societies where pelvic inflammatory disease is common, like Africa, like Southeast Asia. It is less common in those countries where PID or pelvic inflammatory disease is uncommon, and like European or American. But the incidence, whether high or low, is definitely there. Or once one ectopic take place, possibly the causative factor will be persistent. So the second ectopic in same patient, the risk is very high, 20 to 40 times more than first ectopic. Various sites where ectopic, when we say ectopic, it doesn't mean tubal, but it means anywhere outside normal uterine cavity. But fallopian tubes is the commonest site. 95% of ectopics are in the fallopian tubes, but 5% ectopics do take place away from fallopian tube. It could be in the ovary. That means the ovum is not released from the ovary. Fertilized egg remains in the ovary because it gets fertilized in the graphene follicle. And because the sperms, they're so aggressive, they reach through the fallopian tube, the ovary. So fertilized egg remains in the ovary, and so it will be ectopic pregnancy in the ovary. Very uncommon, but it does happen. And second is cervix, that normally that fertilized egg should implant in the uterine cavity. But if it comes down too low into the cervical canal, that is not the normal place it should be. So it is called cervical ectopic pregnancy. At the same time, if near the cervix in the lower segment there is scar in the uterus, it's very common for pregnancy to implant at the scar, which will again ectopic. That becomes very dangerous at the time of delivery because it may cause placenta accreta. So third is congenital anomaly of the uterus, rudimentary horn, because it is blind, it doesn't communicate with the main cavity. That will also be called ectopic. And sometimes it happens that fertilized egg drops in the pouch of Douglas and in the peritoneal cavity, it implants itself. Although very rare, but it does happen. Abdominal pregnancy. Abdominal pregnancy is the fertilized egg falls into the peritoneal cavity and implants. It's called primary abdominal pregnancy. But sometimes it happens that fertilized egg is implanted in the fallopian tubes. Fallopian tubes ruptures or opens up, and placenta remains in the fallopian tube, but the baby starts growing in the cavity, peritoneal cavity. That will be called secondary abdominal pregnancy. So these are the various sites of ectopic pregnancy. Then because 95% cases are tubal. So we'll talk mostly about management, clinical features of tubal pregnancy, and very little about other sites, which are only 5% overall. So tubal pregnancy, 95% of ectopics are fallopian tube, and the common site in the tube is in ampullary part where fertilization takes place near the femoral end, lateral part of the fallopian tube. So first, most of the ectopics are in the tube, tubal pregnancy, and within tube, most of the pregnancies are implanted in the ampullary part, that is lateral part of the fallopian tubes. Well, why ectopic pregnancy happens? Why implantation at abnormal site? First, most common cause is delay or obstruction to the passage of ovum, and that I told you that if there's delay, the ovum or embryo it gets too big to pass through the istemal part, so this remains in the tube. What could be the cause of delay? Cause is the most common cause is pelvic inflammatory disease or PID. In more than half of the cases, this is the cause. If the patient had previous infection of the genital tract, uh, it does happen. Sexually transmitted diseases, they can cause infection in the uterus, in the fallopian tubes, in the pelvis. So all of them, either they damage the local cilia of the fallopian tubes, or they cause adhesions, which means kinking of the fallopian tubes. Both can lead to delay in the passage of the ovum. And the common causative organism in sexual transmitted disease, STDs, are chlamydia, gonococcus, and E. coli. One of the methods of contraception when I talked to you about contraception was intrauterine contraceptive device, IUCD. If the IUCD is inserted and during insertion some infection is introduced, again this will lead to PID. And so those patients who have IUCD, they are more prone to infection, so more prone to ectopic pregnancy. And pregnancy infection could take place after delivery, after abortion, and if there's generalized peritonitis, particularly appendicitis. If a young girl gets an acute attack of appendix or appendicitis, then even if there's suspicion where diagnosis is not confirmed, it is strongly recommended that appendix should be removed. Even if at appendectomy it seems the diagnosis was wrong, appendix was normal, still you have done favor to that little girl, because if acute appendicitis gets into the peritonitis, where that peritonitis will lead to some damage to the fallopian tubes, then high risk of ectopic or infertility. So it's very important to remember that in young girls, even if there's suspicion of appendicitis, appendix should be removed. Even in retrospect, if it was not appendicitis, even suspicion would suggest that appendix should be removed. The other causes, most common is PID. Other causes, tuberculosis of the genital tract, tuberculosis salpingia, same reason. In Pakistan, tuberculosis is still very common, predominant. And so always remember those patients who had pulmonary tuberculosis, when they get married, they have higher risk of ectopic pregnancy. Congenital anomalies of the fallopian tubes, if there's diverticulum in the fallopian tube, the egg will get stuck in the cul-de-sac and in that diverticulum. If there are pelvic tumors like large fibroid, that fallopian tube will be stretched over that, and that stretching will mean longer passage and narrower passage for the embryo. So again, cause tubal surgery means scarring of the tube, and whenever they scar, the cilia will not act so strongly and pushed. Mind you, remember that embryo is cannot move on its own. It is pushed by cilia of the fallopian tubes, ciliary activity of the fallopian tubes. So if patient had tubal surgery, maybe the cilia are damaged and they will not push. Rarely it can happen that ovum is released from the right ovary, but it goes across pelvic peritoneum, pouch of Douglas, and gets into the left tube. Obviously, this delay would mean 2 or 3 days. And I told you, if there's delay in the passage of the egg from the tube to the uterine cavity, risk of ectopic. So in this case, the egg has entered the tube because it came from the right side 2 or 3 days later. So it means the risk of ectopic pregnancy will be there. These days, assisted reproductive techniques, IVF, ICSI, all that, it is a common treatment of infertility. But unfortunately, the risk of ectopic pregnancy in ART patients is higher. 4 to 10% of ectopics of ART patients, they get ectopic. So unfortunate because in ART, the patient has spent a lot of money in getting pregnant. And if that pregnancy is lost through ectopic, it is tragic. Patient gets very upset. These are the causes. And next is pathology. There are changes in the tube, changes in the uterus. Remember these two. Because when pregnancy takes place, they produce extra progesterone and later HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. They all influence the endometrium and the lining of the tubes and bring some changes. You know, changes in the uterus are endometrium becomes secretory phase. That secretory phase continues to help embryo to implant. And so those changes will always be there in the endometrium, whether pregnancy is in the uterine cavity or outside cavity. And similarly, when the implantation takes place in the fallopian tube or anywhere else, local decidual reaction takes place to help trophoblast to implant. And when this happens in the tube, some bleeding takes place. So hematosalpinx is formed or tubal mole is formed. So these are the pathological changes which take place. Remember, the changes are in the uterine cavity as well, although embryo is not there. Embryo is not there, but still those, because they are hormone related, they are progesterone and HCG related. So those changes will be there. And a special form of a excessive glandular reaction is called Arya-Stella reaction, which is terminology given to this change. Well, then next is outcome of tubal pregnancy. When tubal pregnancy takes place, the most common is tubal abortion because it happens in the ampullary part. So that fertilized egg or embryo is thrown out of the ampullary part through the fimbrial end into the peritoneal cavity. And that will be called, when it's expelled from the tube, it will be called tubal abortion. And if it takes place in the fallopian tube, like a small part, narrow part, or any other part, then the risk of rupture of the tube is there, tubal rupture. Sometimes it happens that pregnancies are dislodged from its implantation, but bleeding continues around it, and that will be called tubal mole. Rarely, very uncommon. That expelled embryo from the tube will implant itself in the peritoneal cavity, as I told you earlier, which will lead to abdominal pregnancy. It's very rare, but it does happen. And in nearly one-third cases, spontaneous regression of the fertilized embryo takes place. So the pregnancy is lost or disappears without any treatment. Important to remember, spontaneous regression is possible and it does take place in nearly one-third cases. First, tubal abortion. 65% ectopics end as abortion, nearly two-thirds. When they end that there's some bleeding in the peritoneum, they lead to hemoperitoneum, and normally embryo dies or disappears, but sometimes if it survives, it will cause abdominal pregnancy, which we'll call secondary abdominal pregnancy. Because primary abdominal pregnancy is when fertilized egg implants directly first time in the peritoneal cavity, which is even rarer than secondary abdominal pregnancy. Well, one was tubal mole, tubal abortion, but as I said, in the narrow ischemic part, if the pregnancy implants, there's a greater risk of tubal rupture. And I told you, because there's no space to accommodate that, so tube is stretched, and eventually it gives way. And once the rupture takes place, possibility is there'll be a lot of bleeding in the peritoneal cavity, and the egg will disappear or disintegrate. Rarely, secondary abdominal pregnancy takes place, and fetus may survive, but there are only few documented cases of such babies being delivered through the abdominal route. Now we come to clinical features. These are standard, common features which any patient with ectopic pregnancy, not only tubal, ectopic pregnancy, will present. First, because there is pregnancy, there has to be short period of amenorrhea. Normally, only the menses are overdue by 1 or 2 weeks, 7 to 14 days overdue. And then, because the pregnancy is there, doesn't matter whether in the tube or in the normal cavity. So symptoms, morning sickness, and such early symptoms of pregnancy, where patient may complain. But the main feature of ectopic is pain. Pain could be just dull ache, or it could be acute, sharp ache, or something giving way like rupture. And when there's a lot of bleeding inside the peritoneal cavity, that blood will irritate peritoneum and will lead to shoulder pain. So imagine ectopic in the pelvis, but patient complains of shoulder pain because there's a lot of blood in the peritoneal cavity. That blood is irritating the diaphragm, and that diaphragm irritation causes referred pain that is called shoulder pain. In ectopic pregnancy, when the pregnancy gets disturbed, there's withdrawal of hormones, which lead to, because of withdrawal of hormones, the shedding of the endometrium from the normal uterine cavity, not from the site of ectopic pregnancy, from the uterine cavity, which will cause bleeding. Usually it is small, but sometimes it can be. And because of heavy bleeding in the peritoneal cavity, patient could be in the state of collapse or shock. When we examine general physical examination, blood pressure is low, pulse rate is high, pulse volume is low, and she looks pale. And when you examine, there's tenderness in the lower abdomen, and if there's a lot of blood, it will cause distension. And if the bleeding has been going on for too long, then bluish discoloration of the umbilicus appears, which is known as Cullen's sign. On pelvic examination, typical signs of early pregnancy, bluish discoloration of the vagina. Because of ectopic pregnancy, when you move the cervix on vaginal examination, which is called rocking of the cervix, there's tenderness and in the lower abdomen also there is tenderness. Maybe in chronic ectopic, when bleeding has been going on for too long, you may feel adnexal mass or mass in the pouch of Douglas. I have divided for clinical management ectopic pregnancy into two, acute ectopic and chronic ectopic. Acute ectopic is a serious emergency because it carries, if not properly managed, certain mortality. And I can narrate one story to you. Once a British team was going through safari in Africa, and one middle of the safari, one lady member had severe pain in the lower abdomen. There was a gynecologist in the group as well. He made the diagnosis of ectopic pregnancy. And because in such cases, surgery is life-saving. He performed without instruments, with kitchen knife, laparotomy, and he had no sponges, nothing. He used his handkerchief to mop the peritoneal cavity and put a stitch around, and patient was saved. She survived. But after she reached London, she kept having pain. Eventually, they opened her up and found that the surgeon had forgotten in a hurry to remove his handkerchief from the peritoneal cavity. A foreign body was left, and that handkerchief had the initials of the surgeon as well. So confirmed that it belonged to him. And the lady got a lot of money through insurance, and the doctor was reprimanded. Here is a story that you save somebody's life. Don't expect any gratitude. It is taken that it was your responsibility, your moral and ethical, professional duty to do that operation. And if you have done it and forgotten your hanky inside, then it's a serious business. Anyway, we come back to acute ectopic is a very serious condition. It requires emergency management because patient is in a state of shock, hemorrhagic shock. She looks pale and anxious, cold, and she breathes all the signs of shock. Breathing is shallow and rapid. And in such cases, there's no time should be wasted. Emergency laparotomy or laparoscopic surgery should be carried out on those patients. Acute ectopic. So very little help you require from the laboratory, from any other side, investigation. It's a clinical diagnosis, and hurriedly surgical management should be provided. The second is chronic, very difficult to diagnose. They have vague symptoms and vague signs. Usually, the history of amenorrhea is there, but one presumes in early stages that it will be in the uterine cavity because first 6 weeks, ultrasound does not pick up the pregnancy. And intermittent pain continues, which sometimes gets worse, sometimes not. And when you examine, there's some vague tenderness. These are the patients who are difficult to diagnose clinically. They require investigations. How can we diagnose? A typical case, I told you, it can be diagnosed in a jungle in Africa. And those who are not typical, they are chronic cases. There you need these investigations. TVS is the best investigation. That's why I put it on the top. That transvaginal sonography will show you whether pregnancy is inside the uterine cavity or outside. But mind you, as I said, even ultrasound takes at least a couple of weeks amenorrhea. That means a couple of weeks overdue. That means 6 weeks amenorrhea to diagnose. Earlier, if it takes place, then you need the investigations of the blood, beta HCG. Sometimes all this is not helpful. You have to do laparoscopy for a chronic case. Again, I have put this slide. Clinical features of a classical presentation: short amenorrhea, sudden severe lower abdominal pain, vaginal bleeding, and fainting. If these clinical features are there, it is ectopic. Mind you, no delay. These three features, amenorrhea, abdominal pain, and vaginal bleeding, means ectopic. Hurry to control the bleeding which is taking place inside. I have put summary of tests again because in a typical case, you don't need any investigation. But those who are atypical, who are chronic, their repeated TVS, repeated beta ECG. Beta ECG is a very useful investigation because in a normal pregnancy, after every 48 hours, the level is double. If the first test was, let's say, 200, after 48 hours, it will become 400. After another 48 hours, it will become 800, then 1600. So if it doubles like this, it means a normal pregnancy. In ectopic, it doesn't, because decidual reaction, trophoblast are very erratic, defective. So the repeated beta ECG will show you whether the pregnancy is growing normally in the uterine cavity, normal cavity, or it is abnormal. So if the beta ECG test doesn't rise accordingly, then it means there's some ectopic pregnancy. And of course, laparoscopy is the gold standard for making a diagnosis in chronic cases. Treatment is either I put medical first, then surgical, expectant at the bottom. Normally, in medicine, because expectant means no intervention, no treatment, just watch the patient. I have put that as number 3, not number 1. Number 1 is medical treatment. If the patient reaches you early, then one injection of methotrexate of 50 milligram intramuscularly destroys that ectopic pregnancy. So no more surgery, no more expected treatment. This is a very easy management for the correct diagnosis of ectopic pregnancy at early stage. And the condition has to be so early that sac is less than 3 to 4 centimeters. Methotrexate can be given orally or intramuscularly. Normally 50 milligram intramuscularly is given. And then if the patient comes late as acute emergency, then surgical treatment. If you are expert in laparoscopy, you can do laparoscopic surgery. If not that, do laparotomy because it is a life-saving procedure. Expectant treatment is in those patients where you're not sure of the diagnosis or gradually the symptoms are getting better, pain is getting less, and tenderness is getting less, and beta ECG is falling. And in such cases, it may be you, without giving methotrexate, without doing surgical treatment, you can watch and there's self-curing in that patients. Mind you, medical treatment is given, important, remember this slide, in those patients where beta ECG is less than 5,000, size of the sac is less than 35 millimeter, and baby is not grown enough for fetal heart to be seen, and the tube has not ruptured as yet, and patient is clinically stable. Clinically stable. If she is not, then treatment is surgical. Well, other sites I have just only mentioned the names. I will not go into details because I told you 95% are tubal pregnancies. Rarely there may be ovarian pregnancy or the implantation may take place, cervical canal, a cervical pregnancy, and rudimentary horn pregnancy, and secondary abdominal pregnancy. In every patient, there is one question which is repeatedly asked: what are the chances of next pregnancy? Because especially after ART or IVF pregnancy, the pregnancy lost, they ask what are the chances next. And chances are variable. There's a possibility that there may be 80% chance of normal pregnancy, but in those cases where persistent infection, chronic PID is there, the chances of second ectopic are nearly 50%. And so overall, we quote, if the patient has one ectopic, what are the chances of second ectopic? Then, because we don't know the cause, is generally quoted incidence is 10%. 1 in 300 was the first pregnancy. Now this is 10%. 1 in 1 out of 10. After 2 ectopics, if the patient had 2 ectopics, then third ectopic is likely that it will be 30% chance. When you're a young doctor, when to suspect ectopic? Because suspicion, unless there is suspicion, you will not make the diagnosis. And unless you think of it, you don't make a diagnosis. What mind doesn't know, eyes don't see. In such cases, but remember that a young girl, reproductive age, sexually active, when she gets short amenorrhea and comes to you with pain lower abdomen and vaginal bleeding with positive pregnancy test, it's not always normal pregnancy. Think of ectopic as well. The diagnosis can be confirmed by TVS or ultrasound. Well, management I have spread. If a patient is stable and you do TVS, and there's no bleeding inside, and gestational sac is less than 4 centimeter, and cardiac activity is not present, then you can do medical treatment in those cases. But if all these features are present, our patient is unstable, already in a state of shock, then straight away surgical treatment is the answer. As you asked me to put clinical scenarios as well in my talk, so I've selected these 3 hypothetical presentations I made of myself. First case is a 23-year-old, married for 2 years, primi gravida, first pregnancy, presents with short amenorrhea of 7 weeks, severe pain, lower abdomen, slight vaginal bleeding, and syncope, that she feels faint. And when you examine, she has all the features of shock. If this is the case, it is acute emergency, needs surgical treatment. So any young girl had got pregnant after 2 years of marriage, delayed pregnancy, has these features, then don't waste time. The treatment is surgical treatment after you treated her shock. Then case 2, 18-year-old woman who is brought to the emergency room, complains of vaginal bleed, spotting, and lower abdominal pain. Her abdominal and pelvic examinations are normal. No tenderness, nothing. AC level is 700 and transvaginal sonogram shows no intrauterine gestation sac. Here is the patient who is kind of early pregnancy and complains of vaginal spotting and lower abdominal pain. Otherwise, everything is normal. HCG is normal. And when, as I told you, that in such early cases, you may not see the sac inside the uterine cavity or even outside. And in this case, No intrauterine pregnancy was seen on TVS. A small extrauterine sac on left side with no fetal pole or fetal heart. Here is a patient who is stable, comes to you in early stage, and sac is there in one of the tubes, but it's not ruptured. This is the patient who will be treated with injection methotrexate medically. Third case, a 32-year-old woman presents with the following clinical features. Married for 5 years, had successful IVF treatment. Successful means had IVF treatment and pregnancy test was positive. Now has amenorrhea for 8 weeks. General condition is stable. Pregnancy test is positive, 7,000. Beta SC levels are not, but this is the problem. Beta SC levels are not increasing proportionate to amenorrhea. I told you that beta SCG should double after every 48 hours. It's not increasing that way. Complaints of stabbing pain, lower abdomen, and bleeding for 2 days. Ultrasound, no uterine pregnancy or outside pregnancy is seen. Only cystic ovaries because of stimulation of the ovaries, which was carried out for IVF treatment. So this is the, you have not seen a pregnancy outside. And there is no pregnancy inside as well, but positive pregnancy test with 7,000. In this case, this is the patient who you will wait, do repeated beta HCG tests. Maybe the sac will appear later in the uterine cavity. It is, after all, ART pregnancy. In this is the patient where expectant treatment is required because she is in a stable condition, although she is having pain. Here we will repeat beta HCG after every 48 hours. If it is increasing, it means the pregnancy is normal, will appear on TVS. If it is not increasing by doubling every 48 hours, then possibility of ectopic pregnancy is there. And if it starts decreasing, then it means whatever the pregnancy was, it is degenerating itself, and maybe it will not need any methotrexate medical treatment or surgical treatment. So this is the patient who will require expectant treatment. Next, I have given you 10 MCQs, 5 SCQs as well. I try to solve them at home, and I hope the presentation of these 3 clinical cases meets your requirements. If any more suggestions, please let Dr. Madhia know. She will pass it on to me. Or if there's any other comment, don't hesitate. I have given you the email address, and send email. Because I'm talking to you for your needs. I must satisfy your needs. It's not what I want to say. It is what you want to listen. So that's why do make suggestions if you feel there's room for improvement or correction. Thank you a lot. See you next Thursday. Thanks a lot.